I've never seen a show quite like Barry. It starts as this quirky comedy about a hitman joining an acting class and slowly transforms into one of the darkest character studies ever put on television. Today, I'm walking you through Bill Hader's complete journey as Barry Berkman, from his first awkward scene with Gene Cousineau to the series finale that still has me thinking months later. Season 1. When we first meet Barry Berkman, he's a hollow man, a former Marine sniper turned hitman working out of Cleveland under the guidance of Monroe Fuches, a family friend who manipulated Barry into the killing business after his military service. Barry moves through life in a depressive fog, emotionless and disconnected from any joy. Fuches sends Barry to Los Angeles for what should be a simple job: kill Ryan Madison, an aspiring actor who's been sleeping with a Chechen mob boss's wife. But when Barry follows Ryan to an acting class, something unexpected happens. Standing in the back of the room, watching these passionate, emotional people, Barry feels something stir inside him. Breaking every rule of professional killing, Barry makes contact with Ryan, who immediately mistakes him for a fellow actor and invites him to be his scene partner. Barry's first performance is terrible, completely wooden and emotional. But when he steps off stage, he feels alive for the first time since Afghanistan. The acting class is led by Gene Cousineau, a washed-up, self-important actor played brilliantly by Henry Winkler. Gene initially dismisses Barry as hopeless, but when Barry breaks down and confesses his real life as a hitman looking for a change, Gene mistakes it for incredible acting and welcomes him into the fold. Barry is immediately drawn to Sally Reed, a talented but struggling actress with dreams bigger than her opportunities. Sally embodies everything Barry wishes he could be: passionate, expressive, and normal. Before Barry can quit the hitman life, complications pile up. When he finally goes to kill Ryan, Chechen hitmen have already arrived to eliminate both of them. Barry's military training kicks in, and he efficiently eliminates the Chechen assassins, creating a debt to the Chechen mob that he must repay with more violence. Enter one of TV's greatest characters, No-Ho Hank, played by Anthony Carrigan. This cheerful, polite Chechen gangster becomes an unexpected ally to Barry, his friendly demeanor and odd admiration for Barry creating one of the show's best dynamics. While trying to balance acting classes and mob hits, Barry reconnects with his Marine buddy Chris. Chris's friend Taylor discovers Barry's connection to the Chechens and forces his way into Barry's next job, raiding a Bolivian stash house. The job goes sideways when Taylor, hungry for action, goes against Barry's careful plan and leads another Marine friend into danger. After a disastrous shootout where Taylor dies, Chris is traumatized and tells Barry he wants to confess everything to the police. In the most heartbreaking scene of Season 1, Barry is forced to kill his friend to protect himself, a moment that devastates him but shows just how trapped he is in this life of violence. The emotional fallout from killing Chris fuels an unexpectedly powerful acting performance with Sally, showing that Barry's trauma can be channeled into art at a terrible price. As the season closes, Barry eliminates the Chechen boss Goran and seemingly cuts ties with Fuches, ready to embrace his new life. He accompanies Gene to his lake house along with Sally and Gene's girlfriend, Detective Janice Moss, who's been investigating the Chechen murders all season. The perfect disguise crumbles when Janice connects the dots and realizes Barry is the killer she's been hunting. When she refuses to let it go, Barry makes the choice that will haunt the rest of the series. He kills her, returns to bed with Sally, and sets in motion a cover-up that will eventually destroy everyone he cares about. Season 2. The second season starts with Barry desperately trying to maintain the fiction that he's left violence behind. Gene is devastated by Janice's mysterious disappearance, and Barry must play the supportive student while hiding his guilt. Gene assigns the class to create personal pieces that tell their truth. Sally decides to create a scene about standing up to her abusive ex-husband, though she gradually admits to herself that in reality she quietly left without confrontation. The push and pull between artistic truth and actual truth becomes a major theme. No-Ho Hank has established peace between the Chechens and Bolivians, even developing romantic feelings for Bolivian leader Cristobal. But when the Bolivians bring in a Burmese gang, Hank asks Barry to kill their leader, Esther. Barry refuses to kill anymore and instead offers to train Hank's men to do it themselves. The training sequences provide some of the season's best comedy, as Barry channels his Marine experience to turn this bumbling gang into something resembling soldiers. One Chechen, Merbek, shows particular promise, which threatens Hank's leadership position. Detective Moss's partner Loach discovers Barry's connection to the Chechens and forces Fuches to wear a wire to get Barry's confession. When Fuchsia succeeds, Loach doesn't arrest Barry. Instead, he blackmails him into killing his ex-wife's new boyfriend, Ronnie, a Taekwondo instructor. What follows is one of the show's most incredible sequences, a prolonged fight where Barry, weakened from the flu, struggles against Ronnie in a battle that destroys a supermarket. The sequence ends with Loach killed by Ronnie, who is then killed by police, seemingly ending the investigation into Barry. A vengeful Fuchs tracks down Moss's body and poses as a private investigator, leading Gene to the car where Barry hid her. He frames Gene for the murder and reveals to him that Barry was the real killer. Barry arrives just as the police are taking Gene away. In a brilliant narrative twist, Barry plants evidence that shifts blame to the Chechens, freeing Gene but creating a new lie that will deepen his moral compromise. The season ends with Barry storming a monastery where gang leaders have gathered, slaughtering dozens in his rage to get to Fuchs, who escapes. The violence is shocking in its intensity, showing just how thin Barry's reformed veneer really is. The Chechens misinterpret the massacre, believing Hank orchestrated it, inadvertently elevating him to respected leader status. Season 3. This season reveals a Barry in full psychological collapse. His relationship with Sally is deteriorating as she develops her own TV show, Joplin, based on her abusive relationship, and Gene now knows Barry's darkest secret. When Gene confronts Barry with a gun, Barry subdues him and makes chilling threats against Gene's son and grandson to ensure his silence. It's a terrifying evolution for Barry, who's now willing to threaten innocent family members. Barry tries to make amends by getting Gene acting work, but when Sally won't cast Gene in her show, Barry's frustration explodes in a shocking burst of rage that reveals his abusive tendencies to Sally. It's a pivotal moment when Sally realizes the danger Barry represents, and she finally breaks off their relationship. Through persistence and manipulation, Barry manages to revitalize Gene's acting career, even delivering him a substantial cash payment from a hit on Cristobal's father-in-law that Barry carries out for Hank. The story of Gene mentoring Barry becomes public, casting Gene as a hero while hiding the monstrous truth. The season delivers one of its most unique storylines as Hank and Cristobal's romance blossoms, only to be threatened when Cristobal's wife Elena arrives seeking vengeance for her father's death. She kidnaps Cristobal and subjects him to horrific conversion therapy. Hank's rescue mission to Bolivia results in a surreal sequence where his men are killed by a literal panther, yet he manages to save Cristobal by killing both the panther and Elena. Sally's show is canceled after one episode, sending her spiraling. When her former assistant Natalie gets her own show, Sally lashes out in a cruel rant that's recorded and shared online, destroying her career. Her humiliation and resentment mirror Barry's own darkness. Fuchs, now calling himself the Raven, returns to LA and visits the families of Barry's victims, encouraging them to seek revenge. This leads to multiple attempts on Barry's life, including a motorcycle gang attack and poisoning by Chris's widow. In a moment of vulnerability, Barry is confronted by his old Marine friend Albert, now an FBI agent. Albert lets Barry go out of gratitude for saving his life in Afghanistan, but makes him promise to stop killing, a promise Barry almost immediately breaks. The season climaxes when Fuchs tells Janice's father, Jim Moss, that Barry killed his daughter. Jim sets a trap using Gene, who betrays Barry to the police after manipulating him into thinking they needed to kill Jim. As Barry is arrested, he realizes Gene's orchestrated his downfall, justice for Janice finally arriving. Season 4. The final season begins with Barry in prison alongside Fuchs, who's now embraced his persona as the Raven. After initial antagonism, the two reconcile, with Fuchs assuming a father-like role to Barry once again. Outside, Sally is grappling with the public knowledge that she dated a killer. Her career in ruins, she returns to her hometown before finding work as an acting coach. Gene enjoys newfound fame for catching Barry, though Jim Moss warns him that his interviews are jeopardizing the case. In one of the season's most surprising developments, Hank and Cristobal attempt to build a legitimate business empire selling construction sand. Their happiness is short-lived, as Hank makes the heartbreaking choice to kill Cristobal when pressured by the Chechen leadership. It's a devastating moment that shows how far Hank has fallen from the cheerful, optimistic character we first met. When Barry learns the FBI wants him to inform on the Chechens, Hank sends assassins to kill him. Barry fights them off and escapes prison, sending both Gene and Jim Moss into hiding. The narrative then takes a bold 8-year time jump. Barry and Sally are living under new identities in a remote location with their young son, John. Barry has turned to religion and believes he's reformed, while Sally is deeply unhappy, drinking heavily and emotionally distant from her son. Fuchs has been released from prison and commands a loyal gang who believe in his Raven persona. He goes to work for Hank, who has built a successful empire but remains haunted by Cristobal's death. Their relationship deteriorates into violent conflict. When Barry learns Hollywood is making a movie about him, he leaves Sally and John to kill Gene. and prevent his story from being told. Gene, meanwhile, initially opposes the film, but changes his mind when he learns Daniel Day-Lewis might play him. The FBI, suspecting Gene was Barry's accomplice all along, sets a trap. In Barry's absence, Sally and John are captured by Hank's men as bait. When Fuchsia's arrives with his gang, the sight of Barry's son causes him to abandon his vengeance. A massive gunfight erupts, killing Hank and most of the gangs. But Fuchsia's protects John and safely delivers him to Barry in a final act of paternal love. Sally urges Barry to turn himself in to free Gene from being falsely accused, but Barry refuses. As Barry searches Gene's house for Sally and John, Gene emerges and shoots him dead. A shocking end for our protagonist, but perhaps the only just conclusion possible. The series ends years later, showing Sally as a high school drama teacher raising a teenage John. In a brilliant final twist, we learn the Hollywood version of Barry's story has completely distorted the truth, painting Barry as a hero and Gene as the villain working with the Chechen. Barry received a hero's funeral while Gene serves life in prison. In the final scene, John watches this fictional account of his father's life, choosing to believe this sanitized version over the complicated truth, suggesting that the cycle of denial and self-deception continues into the next generation. What makes Barry so extraordinary is its willingness to follow its dark premise to logical, often disturbing conclusions. Starting as a fish-out-of-water comedy about a hitman in acting class, it evolved into a profound meditation on whether people can truly change and the price of seeking redemption while avoiding consequences. Each character's journey reflects this theme. Barry never escapes his violent nature despite genuine attempts to change. Sally's ambition blinds her to her own toxic behavior. Gene's ego leads to both his greatest triumph and downfall. And Hank's desire to be respected drives him to betray the only person he truly loved. The series never offers easy answers or unearned redemption. Instead, it presents a world where actions have consequences. Violence creates more violence, and the past cannot simply be acted away, no matter how convincing the performance. Which character's fate hit you hardest? And do you think Barry could ever truly have changed? Or was his violent end inevitable from the moment we met him?